The following is a production of Salt and Light Radio in Boise, Idaho. Kick off your work boots and pull up a boulder. It's time for Man Cave, discussing the issues that affect Catholic men in today's culture. Grab your favorite beverage, pick out a comfy spot around the campfire, and enjoy today's conversation with our two favorite cavemen, Pat King and Brian Howe.
Well, hello, this is Pat King with Pat King's Man Cave. Welcome. Thanks for joining me. Kind of have a little issue today. I left my phone at home, and it's got all my show notes on it and the topics I wanted to discuss. But so hopefully I can wing it. Though one of this episode, though, I want to talk about the importance of evangelization and the church's role and your role and some other things the Knights of Columbus are doing, and it's kind of actually all is coming together about the same time. So my question here was the church's role in evangelizing, and so I come at it from the laity side of things, but the church, especially with the amount of priests that we have today, the few numbers. Priests have huge roles and responsibilities for the parishes that they have. Now, a lot of priests nowadays they're not small parishes in a local small town, and you got one over here and you got one over here nearby, and you've got 10 or 12 parishes in a small city area or something like that. And typically, you have one large city with one parish, and you will have a parish priest, the pastor of that parish, and then you have a pastoral vicar that will serve as second in command. And so between the two, they may have 2,000-3,000 families that they got a pastor for, and that's a lot. Plus they're running the church. I mean, the church is a business. They're running the church as a business. There's bills to pay and requests needed and events to schedule. And now they have secretaries and stuff like that. But pastors of a church have a lot more than just do Sunday Mass or go to funerals or do weddings. Most pastors, I think all of them will tend to work 7 days a week, but really they're supposed to have a day off, and they work 6 days a week, at least in the Diocese of Boise, Idaho, which is the entire state. Our diocese, the entire state of Idaho, it's one of the larger states in the country. And yet we're still a very rural, and our cities are spread apart. So to be a pastor of a parish, they have a lot of responsibilities, duties. For example, we had our last priest who was recently transferred closer to home in Lewiston. He was a solo pastor for about 2 years before he got a second priest, and he was his first year priest. He was from Poland, and I got to know Father Pascal, and I asked him, okay, so why did you come to America? And he said, well, there's literally too many priests in Poland. In his diocese, I think he said something like there was 1,000 priests in his diocese alone, and it would be a while before you became a parish pastor in Poland. And so he wanted to be useful, and he decided to finish his seminary over here in the States and become part of the Diocese of Boise. In fact, 4 Polish priests have joined us, our diocese, and have become diocesan priests. And so we tend to think that the priest is supposed to be the one that heads up all the evangelization, is in movement of all the events, heading up religious education and doing all that stuff, when quite frankly their schedules are so full that they spend a lot of time just managing the business affairs of the church itself. They're getting the lawn mowed and keeping the building maintained and stuff like that. So the days of a parish priest just kind of being available at all times where people just walk up, knock on the rectory door, or go to the office, and he's available. It's not as readily available and as easy to get access to. So, but it's also not really his responsibility to bring in new recruits, whatever you want to call it, new converts, religious educate people that want to seek the Catholic Church. The impetus is really upon the laity of that parish to do the majority of the evangelizing. Now, it's very important and incumbent on the pastor of every priest of that parish to be the one that encourages others to go out and evangelize, to bring in, to seek the souls of others to help bring them into the parish, bring them into the church. And that message is sent at the end of every Mass. Go and spread the gospel, or spread the good news, or go out and live your life as a called Catholic. That is a mission of discipleship right there. It's a mission to go out and teach. You have the knowledge of the faith, albeit most people have a very rudimentary knowledge of the faith. Not trying to put anyone down. It's most people were born and raised Catholic and live their lives Catholic, and so they go to Mass because it's the obligation. They understand that part of their faith. But I'll be honest, there's not a lot of people that do a lot of extracurricular stuff with the church in regards to, like, every Sunday morning before Mass, we, our Knights of Columbus, host a rosary, scriptural rosary just before Mass. We start at 8:28 in the morning, and to be done in time for the Mass itself. But we literally only have between 5 and 10 people that come on a fairly regular basis to hear the rosary prior to. And that is, in a way, is kind of sad. In fact, it's mostly women that come, and men who really should be the ones that lead their family to worship. Coming to a rosary before Mass is a good way to start the preparation for Mass itself. And so that part of spiritual growth and evangelization, we just don't see a lot of the Bible reading, the Bible study groups. We don't see the groups growing in our parishes where they are expanding their faith, their formation, their evangelization, their fraternal order of the church by coming and doing these small groups, participation in religious ed or young adults or anything like that. We just don't see that part of it growing in the church, and everyone relies on the priest to be the instigator of evangelization, when in reality he's one priest shepherding the flock of 3,000-4,000 people. There's 3,000-4,000 people that really, if even 10% of them were out there spreading the gospel, evangelizing, bringing the good news to others and trying to get them to come and participate in the events at the church, you'd be seeing the church growing in leaps and bounds. That'd be just 300 people on a regular basis going out and running small groups. And I can honestly say that I don't see that many church members throughout the week coming to anything, even adoration on a regular. We have regular adoration on Tuesdays and Fridays, where you can come and sit and adore our Lord in a small chapel for most of the day. Just sit and be with him, and as he's exposed to everybody. And yet I don't see hundreds of people. It's not a standing room only situation. And this is a small chapel that, I don't know, can probably fit 75 people at most, and yet there's always open seats. And so the priest can only do so much to evangelize. They're really not out in the public. They don't have I used to have a business where we talked about the sphere of influence, or better yet, you might know the familiar of the 6 degrees of separation. Kevin Bacon, people have this. I don't even know the whole thing, but like there's so many relationships that bring you back to any tie to Kevin Bacon. What do they call that? I think that's the movie 6 Degrees of Separation. Anyway, I don't want to talk too much about something I don't know that much about, but there was a story about someone that he was so involved in so many different movies that you could bring it all back to there's a touch point where Kevin Bacon was involved. But you go out in your daily life, you have a work life, you have a home life, you have a sports life, you may even have a regular pool night or bowling night. That's another group of people, a sphere of influence of people that you have on a regular basis that you can have influence on. Whereas a priest, basically his sphere of influence is the flock that he preaches to any given day, any given Sunday. And so it's not really his role. It's his role to encourage evangelization, but it's really not his role to expand the size of the church through his own evangelization directly one-on-one with other people. And this has been on my mind for quite some time to talk about this, as it so happens. The Knights of Columbus have a new initiative. It's really a renewing of an old initiative of the founding of the Knights of Columbus through Father Michael J. McGivney, and which was the unity, the fraternal organization of the Knights of Columbus was founded on faith formation, evangelization, and protection, or that fraternal order of protecting the parish family overall, widows and children especially. But so recently I was sent back to training for the new initiative called Evangelization and Faith Formation, as this new pilot program that the Knights of Columbus are wanting to kick off. And they really emphasize it's not a program. It's not something they're just starting like, oh, look at us, we're going to start a new program and we want to deepen people's faith. It's really a renewing of what Father McGivney actually wanted to do from the very beginning, and that was spreading the gospel through the men of this parish. And so the Knights of Columbus have invited state jurisdictions or states from all across the country to meet back and get some training on what's called a core meeting. And the core meeting is establishing it's fellowship, it's prayer, it's formation, meaning it's deepening of your faith and understanding of your faith formation, and then building that bond through fraternity of men. Now, this initiative is really designed to be for men only, as a small men's group. And part of the reason why is that iron sharpens iron, and men tend to strengthen each other up when they have the ability to openly and honestly relate to other men with their situation. Most men don't share their emotions or their feelings about things or situations that they're facing, and they don't tend to be so open about it in a mixed crowd. But part of this core meeting, which is going to be separate from the Knights, is to help men deepen their faith through prayer, through understanding their faith, the Catholic Church in general. We're going to discuss the basics of the church, Bible study. We're going to have directed content that will, like, so the Knights of Columbus produced a 12 video series on Into the Breach based on the book written by a bishop in Arizona. Forget his name. Like I said, my show notes are not with me today. So he produced this Into the Breach story, which was about the weakening of the parishes through the lack of male participation. There's not enough men stepping into the breach and solidifying the strength of a parish or the church itself, even the family. When you consider that the divorce rate in America is higher than 50%, I think that's even true with Catholic marriages, is that it's very high, and it's because that I think men have lost sight of what their role is as men and in the life of marriage, in the domestic church of the family. And so this initiative of evangelization and faith formation it's going to take someone to get the ball rolling and start it off. And that is in correlation and with community with the priest, but not so much the priest heading it. Priest just, a local pastor just doesn't have that time to go out and start forming these small Bible studies. He may be able to participate in them, but to organize them and to get them going, that is up to us as the laity of each parish. And so the role is really of evangelization is upon you, the family. And men, you're the one that really starts this off. You're the one that is responsible for it happening within your own family. I think you first need to evangelize your own family. Get them. It's not a matter of, whipping them into shape, but be that leader they need, that they seek for their faith development, for their faith growth, their spiritual life, their prayer life. It's the statistics are out there saying that men who lead the family in prayer, worship, and going mass at church attendance is about a 68% retention rate of their children remaining Catholic in their later years, in their more adult years, after they leave high school. Maybe they go to college. They tend to have that stick-to-itiveness of their faith because the father in the family led them. Now, in my own case, I wasn't a practicing Catholic at the time that I raised my kids, but I did raise my kids in the Christian faith. I made sure that they went to a church every Sunday, that they were involved in the churches the non-denominational churches we attended. We also went to a private Christian school where I was deeply involved into the church itself, the school itself, as far as I coached junior high basketball, boys and girls. I was there for my girls' sports. I raised girls. So I was there involved as far as we, cook and, do concessions for their games and events. Made sure the girls went to practice, helped them out outside of practice. Of course, I had, strict requirements of their grades being high to maintain their extracurricular activities. But I was very involved in making sure that they continued on in their Christian faith by leading them down that path. And they're to this very day, they're still very devout Christian young adults. My youngest, I think, is 27. I have to do the math. Yeah, 27. So, and they're both very involved in all three of them are very involved in their churches that they go to. I wish they would join me in the Catholic Church, but that's a lot of my fault for not leading that way. But hopefully, as they get older and relationships are improved, and when it comes to, they're kind of stuck in their ways, and I've gone a different path, and to them, I'm an enigma, so because as far as the Catholic Church was concerned, it wasn't anywhere in their life at all, which is my problem, my bad. But again, I kept them. I did know that it was very important to lead them in their spiritual life. So, men, it is upon you to be that. You're not just the breadwinner. That is an important role and a deep responsibility to provide for your family, provide for their security, provide for their future. But the one thing that their future requires more than just financial security is their spiritual security. And you are the one that leads that way. So evangelization is a very key role for the men in the home and the men in the parish. One of the things that I often comment about is I've taken youth up to the seminary at Mount Angel. I chaperone young men that are discerning the priesthood, and we'd go for an open house weekend up at Mount Angel, and we'd get into the basement where we do daily prayer, liturgy of the hours, mass, and all these men in this room, and singing in unison songs, hymns of the church, or even saying the liturgy of the hours. You got the one side, then you got the response, and to hear all those men's voices in unison, it's a feeling of deep spirituality, deep beauty, and hearing men's voices in unison with power and strength and conviction. And yet you go to your own parish mass and you hear mostly women's voices. You hardly hear any men's voices. And I can really tell you this, that if you can get all the men of that parish to sing in unison, the sound would be so beautiful, so warming, so strong. You would feel the strength of a warrior from the deep vocals that men produce. So at this training, we had men's mass, and these are men from all over. I mean, from Hawaii all the way to Connecticut, and everywhere in between, Texas and Idaho and Minnesota. I think there were 21 different jurisdictions represented at New Haven, Connecticut, the birthplace of Knights of Columbus. And here we are. No one's practiced this or anything, but here we are singing the hymns of the daily mass, or even just saying the prayers that are in the mass together. It just reverberates. You just feel the warmth. It's almost a heat in your heart and your soul of listening to those men's voices. Just say prayer in unison, and that's an amazing sound of strength. And we need to build that back up into our churches. That sound, that male bonding, that male fraternity. It is, and no insult to women that might be watching this, that is the strength of the church. Okay? So the Knights of Columbus have, one of the things that they've noticed, and I've noticed this myself too. In fact, I've often stated that the one thing that the LDS Church does is they really have a lot of programs that keep their youth involved in their church, in their style of worship. And it's almost a requirement that every young boy, and now it's girls, go on a mission, 2-year mission, when they reach the age of 19 or 18 or 19, and they go on a 2-year mission. And then once they get back, it's a requirement to be involved in some way, in some youth group, some organized event that they, until they're married, that they participate in. But even throughout high school, they go to their off-campus seminary in public high schools. They have a seminary church building nearby where they go to. And now I don't agree with the LDS Church on their beliefs, but they do know how to keep their youth involved and engaged in their services. And so the Catholic Church has done, for the most part, a very poor job of, sure, they teach the sacraments and they do confirmation, and they even have youth groups up until they're in high school and out. but they don't have a lot of programs afterward. Now, Theology on Tap is one of those groups that are making headway, but I don't see them in every parish. They're not, they may be in a community. Like I think we have one or two in this whole Treasure Valley of what, 700,000 population. And there might be one Theology on Tap. And I know there's a university campus that has a youth or young adult program. There's Focus Ministries here, but you don't hear a lot of these large groups of Catholics, young Catholics, hanging out and doing retreats and stuff like that together. So one of the things that younger members of the Knights of Columbus I've found and witnessed is that, so Knights of Columbus they have a monthly meeting. It's a business meeting. They determine programs are involved with Coach for Kids, or, the Lenten fish fries are coming up, we got to organize for that, or let's do Sunday breakfast or donut and coffee hours, or let's food boxes for Thanksgiving and Christmas time. There's all these programs that Knights of Columbus do. Some specialize in medical equipment that gets refurbished and reallocated out or given away. They may be involved with St. Vincent de Paul's food drives or whatever. Knights of Columbus tend to fill the need. One of the great things that Knights do is they provide funding for a lot of pro-life birthing center, emergency pregnancy crisis centers. Here and locally, we've got a Stanton Healthcare, we've got Birthright Idaho, Idaho for Chooses Life. I can't name all the different ones around, but we send out money. We raise funds through, like right now, we're currently doing a beef hog raffle for half a beef or half a hog and some other items. $20 raffle ticket. That's one of our big fundraisers for our council, Council 3086 in Caldwell. And we raise money, and a lot of those funds are for pro-life movement things. We support our seminarians. We St. Vincent de Paul, whatever needs come up throughout that they need contributions or help with financially, or even volunteer hours. The Knights of Columbus do that. And so over the years, the Knights have become just known for their business meeting and their programs, but there's not much more. And I'll be honest, I didn't even want to join when I was returned to the Catholic, when I became a revert. The Knights of Columbus didn't excite me, because what I knew of Knights of Columbus growing up in my church in Twin Falls was they're just a bunch of old men that sit around drinking beer and playing cards. And occasionally they would do some ceremonial events, midnight mass. Always saw them in their full regalia at midnight mass. And that was what I knew of them. I didn't know of any program that they did, or they did pancake breakfast. So they do pancake breakfast and help the Boy Scouts. I think that was the biggest thing I knew about them. But outside of that, I had no idea of the size of the Knights, the amount of members throughout the United States and all the different countries they're in. And I didn't know about all the volunteer hours, all the other things they do, the behind the scenes stuff. A lot of the Knights of Columbus are Eucharistic ministers, they're lectors, they teach youth ministry, or they'll teach religious ed. The Knights of Columbus are a very multifaceted organization, so they all do different things. But a lot of times when we get young people to join the Knights of Columbus, they come, they sit, they listen to some meetings, they vote on, let's give some money over here, let's get some money over here. They may, at the end of the meeting, they'll say some prayers, and then they'll drink some beer, and they go home. And the only other connection to brotherhood is, okay, so they're all on the cook line doing Lenten fish fries, or they're making breakfast. That fraternity that Blessed Father McGivney started hasn't. It's kind of gone to a more, let's just an hour-long meeting. Let's get the business out of it and let's go home. And a lot of that's been brought on by our own desires. Oh, another meeting. Okay, I'll go, and then I just want to go home. I don't want to spend time hanging out with my brother nights at all after that. I want to just go home, watch football, or eat more food. Who knows? If they want to spend time with their kids, that's fantastic. But families, wives, I hope you understand that this night's organization is not just time away from the family to hang out with guys watching football or baseball at a bar or playing pool or going bowling. This is really crucial and beneficial to the spiritual life of the church. And so it's really important that men become knights, because they are really the backbone, the strength, the protection of the church itself. You need that element of manhood in the church to do the things that the church just can't get done. For example, we had some work done. We irrigate our lawn. It's a big lawn, and we irrigate our lawn with canal water. And we had to have some work done on our system because it was sucking too much mud. There's a lot of mud in the canals, and it was sucking too much mud in the system and plugging up and ruining sprinkler heads and the pumping system. So they put in a cleaner, deeper system, and they tore the fence down around it, and then they got it put together, but no one put the fence back up. And we were having this huge fiesta coming up, summer fiesta, and the church just, by the time they spent the money to fix the sprinkler system, there wasn't money in the budget to put the fence back up around the pumping equipment to protect it from, kids falling in or getting hurt and all this stuff. So, and quite honestly, it wasn't very safe for kids to be walking around it. So the church came to us and said, hey, we need some help. Well, so our grand knight said, hey, we need to fix this fence. How many volunteers can we get? And, if it was a 1 or 2 man guy job, it would have taken half a day, maybe a little longer to do all the work. We had, I think, 10 or 12 people volunteer and show up. That thing was done before my coffee even got cold, before I even drank it all. We even had a thing of donuts that weren't even done eating before we were done doing the work. And that's how the Knights of Columbus are benefiting the church. It needed to be done. It didn't cost the church anything. We volunteered. We put the fence up. We bought a few bags of concrete, and no big deal. But the Knights in unison, in a large group, can get a lot of things done quickly. So our day, showed up at 8 o'clock. We were done by 10, and we had the rest of our day to ourselves. And then we had this safe pumping system around for when the fiesta took place the following weekend. And so that's the power of the Knights of Columbus. That's the power of men working together. And there's an organization with the Knights that puts this all together. But a lot of young men would come in, and there wasn't enough depth to the Knights. It was the good works, but there was no spirituality. There was no faith formation. There was no deepening of even that fraternal bond. Yes, working with tools, digging holes, and laughing and having a good time putting something together. That's one aspect of a fraternity, of building the strength, of iron sharpening iron, the ribbing, the things that take place when you're working on a project. But there's people, especially in this day and age, they're so lost that they're looking for something far greater than just doing projects. And so the Knights, led by Sean Potts in New Haven at the Supreme Knights headquarters in New Haven, Connecticut, he was part of Focus Ministries on campus, which is a campus ministry for helping Catholics stay Catholic, as well as helping others seeking God to find God in a place for themselves in the Catholic Church. And Focus Ministries is a very, very productive program for maintaining that Catholic, college-age kid, Catholic, helping to keep what the parents have started at home and fostering that and keeping them Catholic outside of the home as they become adults in their own lives and choosing to remain Catholic as an adult. So it's very beneficial program. And yet there's nothing, again, I talked about this earlier, there's nothing that really keeps them Catholic. They're seeking something to grow their faith in that they can relate to. And the Knights of Columbus have done a very poor job of evangelizing that aspect of the Knights of Columbus. So this new initiative, Evangelization, Faith Formation, I was selected as our jurisdiction or our diocese or our state team, EFF team, with another young man, Sean Burlisle, which we're going to do an episode on that a little further, as this is just something we started doing. So I'm just still learning the program or how to institute the core meeting itself. But I think this initiative is so important to deepen the faith of men that are Catholic, that are Knights of Columbus. It's a separate meeting outside of the business meeting. It's in addition to. It's going to start out initially as a once a month meeting. And where it goes from there will all be determined by those that are in the group, in the participation in the group, whether it be several men's groups, small men's group form out of that, with the once a month meeting coming together to work on, like say you're doing a study Into the Breach, you're doing a 12-week study on that, or we're going to do a book like the book Immortal Combat, or the Return of the Prodigal Son book by Father Nowen. There's lots of resource materials to study and deepen one's faith, but the whole goal is to be heavy on prayer, heavy on faith formation, and heavy on the fraternity of building those relationships, that male bond. Now, how can you be heavy on all those in each? Well, one month might be really heavy on prayer because that's what's needed, and then some on formation, and maybe a little more on fraternity, or vice versa. Those three key elements will be part of every meeting, but it'll all determine. Like one meeting may be a family outing, or we're going to go and go out fishing or go bowling or something, where one meeting will be in that category where it's a family event. There'll always be those three key elements of prayer, formation, and faith formation, and fraternity, because iron sharpens iron. I don't care. It's even mentioned in the Bible that the strength of another man is built up only by the strength of another man. So what would be a weakness in one man might be a strength in another. And now that one man can help that man build that weakness up to a strength. Speaking in public was never my thing. I talk a lot, but that's not public speaking. That's just talking. That's just being a chatterbox. I was always told, my mom was always sent home notes saying, if your son would just shut up long enough, he might learn something. I'm glad they didn't have drugs like Ritalin and things like that for ADD, because I would have been a case for that. But that energy built into other played sports and stuff like that. But this was not my thing, to come and do podcasts or be on the radio, but it just became something that was strong in me that I wanted to share and help men become stronger in their faith. And so evangelization is a key role for the church, but it's more of a key role for the laity of that church, especially the men. The men of that church there's something strong about a man who's going to another man and saying, brother, I love you. I want to help you find your way to God, and let me help you. Now, again, you're not going to just go out and say that to someone. Hey, You might have to just tell someone, brother, you need God. Come with me. You may have to gag him and drag him, as I like to say. But when a man loves on another man with patience and acceptance, he has a lot of influence on that man, because they're seeking something that he has. And if you're living your Catholic faith in a strong way, and you're wearing your Catholic heart on your sleeve, so they know you're Catholic, whether you're wearing a crucifix or you're talking about your faith, you have influence on someone if you're willing to share it. And most people out there are so in need of seeking God. They just don't know where to turn. And you need to be that one person they can turn to. Because our goal as disciples of Christ is not just to be saved, it's to go out and help save. That's why the Knights of Columbus are really so successful, is that they're doing the works of the church that God has asked them to do. But now we're going to start doing the works of the church when it comes to their faith and their formation, because we already have councils all across the country that can help start these programs of these meetings. I hate calling it a program. It's not a program. Help starting these faith formation meetings and groups, because they already have the manpower. They have the wherewithal to do so. And hopefully they have a place to meet. But it's if the church isn't growing, the church is dying. And we've been around over almost 2,000 years now, and the only way it stayed around is through evangelization and formation of the next generation. So with that, I'd like to end with the St. Michael's prayer, in the name of the Father and the Son and the Holy Spirit.
Saint Michael the Archangel, defend us in battle. Be our protection against the wickedness and snares of the devil. May God rebuke him, we humbly pray. And do thou, O Prince of the heavenly host, by the power of God, cast into hell Satan and all the evil spirits who prowl about the world, seeking the ruin of souls. Amen. In the name of the Father, and the Son, and of the Holy Spirit. Amen.
We hope you've enjoyed this episode of Man Cave, a weekly podcast discussing the issues that affect Catholic men in today's culture. A production of Salt and Light Radio in Boise, Idaho. To learn more about our ministry, please visit our website, saltandlightradio.com.